keep my volume up on my mic. Here we go. All right, let's wait for people to jump on in. It looks like we've got 15 people tuning in, which is good. So please sign in on your cell phone. Let me get out my phone so I can see who's signing in. Make sure that you put your name in the comments. Had to go through a update on my computer, an update through this program that I use to offer this class. So it took me a little bit of time to get things all lined up and ready for tonight. So I hope we're ready to rock and roll because we want to finish strong. Hard to believe this is it. Tonight, tomorrow night, Thursday we'll have a little bit of content, and then the last half of Thursday will be our finally here. But we got a lot to talk about because some of you are still missing some of your homework. So make sure that you go through the sheet. Let's see if I can find it. So it was on Facebook. It was a course outline, told you the chapters that you had to do. So make sure that you do your chapters and send those in to me. I need those for my record keeping, that you at least did them. And let's get to some housekeeping. This textbook that you are supposed to use for your homework, I need this on Thursday. So what I want everybody to do is on your phone, I want you to text me whether you can meet me Thursday after school at 2:30. Maybe your teacher will let you come down to the lobby. I will be in the school lobby with a box collecting the textbooks on Thursday. Now, I know some of you do not go to Oyster River, or you may still be home remotely. That's fine. I'll find a way to collect it from you. But Thursday, I want to collect. So what I want you to do right now, that you can hand in your textbook. So text me. I will be there Thursday at 2:30 in the lobby to give you your textbook, because I have a new class starting next week and they need their material this weekend. That's usually what I do, is I hand it out the weekend before, so they're ready to go for Tuesday. If you're driving tomorrow or Thursday morning, you can give me your text at that time. For those of you that don't go to Oyster River, or you can't make it Friday, Saturday at noontime, run by the school. I'll be there dropping off a student usually, and I'll collect it then. Now, if that still doesn't work, then we've got to make arrangements for Monday or Tuesday, and that means I'm going to have to try to get textbooks to the new class. I do have a couple hours open tomorrow afternoon, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. So if people want to finish up, because this is the last week of class, it's going to be difficult to see you and schedule you. Like right now, I'm giving you a couple hours that's open tomorrow. You're not going to get that after Thursday's class. It's going to be text messages to me. Mr. Toll, when can you squeeze me in? So if we're not finished by next Tuesday, your availability to drive will be slowed down even slower than it is right now. So a good majority of you will be done, hopefully, by this weekend. Some of you may go into Monday or Tuesday, but of the 23, I think I looked, there's going to probably be at least 12 to 13 of you that I feel pretty confident that I'll have done this week or by this weekend. The rest of you will just take it slow as we go. But like I said, it's going to be harder to get the driving time in, unfortunately. So you should have been texting me during vacation, or 2-3 weeks ago during Saturdays and things like that, when we were open to drive, where I had availability. But that's water under the bridge. Here we are, and we'll make the best of what we have. Now, tonight's topic is car crashes and insurance. How come I didn't get out of the music? Where's my button? There we go. Chapter 9 and Chapter 11 are the two chapters that we're going to be going over from the textbook this weekend. So at the end of tonight's class, besides a worksheet, I posted a worksheet this morning dealing with the New Hampshire crash report that I want you to acquaint yourself with. And I will explain that near the end of the program. So these two forms, let me just put one up here. So this is what we're doing tonight for your homework. Let me put it up here. All right, there it is. State of New Hampshire Motor Vehicle Crash Report. So whenever you have a crash in New Hampshire, if it's over $1,000, the state requires you. Whoa, look at that. I never knew that I could do that with my mouse. It requires you to fill out a report like this. Now, I don't expect what we do for this worksheet to be entirely accurate. I know that we're going to take some liberty on how we fill this out. We're going to make a scenario of a car crash, and you're going to write out a narrative of what happened. If you were involved in a car crash and you want to try to recreate it on this, that would be kind of cool. You can do that. But for the most part, we're going to be making that stuff up. So there's actually two forms. There's the back side of it. Okay, this is the part that on the left side, your vehicle, I want that to be pretty much factual because that's what you're going to have to fill in as a fact. But the other vehicle, totally make it up. Totally make up the other person's driver's license number, name, date of birth, all that stuff. But, we're going to try to make it as true to what our accident would be like. So that's what we're doing for our worksheet, besides getting Chapter 9 and Chapter 11 done. So remember, just take a picture. Oh, the other thing I need, and I started to hand it out to a few people today, is the state requires part of the driver's ed program is the classroom, the driving, and observation. Now, because of COVID, we haven't been able to put students in the back to watch other students drive. So what the state wants you to indicate that your parents helped you while they were driving. So they were driving and they were pointing things out to you like, okay, at this yield sign, I'm going to check over in my mirrors over my shoulder right now. I want to keep my speed. And they kind of explain some things about driving to you. That's basically what observation is. So I do have an observation form that I have in the car. So I'm going to start giving out the hard copy to those of you that are driving with me tomorrow and Thursday. But I will also put it on the Facebook page. So if you can download it, all you got to do is, download it, print it out, have your parents sign it, date it, and then take a picture of it and send it to me like you do with your homework. So I need that in my file before I give you your green form. Some of you will be getting your green form on Friday. So Thursday night at the end of class, I will have all the graded exams. So the email through the company that I use for some of your homework, some of your midterms, well, it is the midterm. All that information comes through my phone. So I have it all in my phone and I've got all those grades. Okay. So I've got that. So the minute I know that you've got a passing grade on the final and you've got most of your work into me, I know there'll probably be a few assignments or I'm not going to bang you on that. But for the most part, I want your homework, at least, most of it in. If there's one or two, I'm not going to kill you on that. Then I can give you your certificate. All right. But if there's any missing pieces, I don't need the 40-hour log. That is something that you take to the state. Someone asked me today about it. If you take a look at the very top of this form that I gave you of the course outline, it gives the link to the 40-hour form that you need to have filled out. So that's just a little bit of what we're going to do tonight, what's coming up with the final. We will do a review. I have, I believe, 100-question, maybe it's 80 questions. I'm not too sure, but I did a YouTube review. So at the end of tomorrow night's class, your last half hour will be to go and watch the video and try to answer the questions as they come along. So I'm not going to do it live where I stop it. I'm going to have you do it at your own pace. That way you can stop it, write down the correct answer, and then study it that way. If you do really well on the um, review questions that I have for you tomorrow night, I feel pretty confident you'll do okay Thursday night. They're not exactly the same. Um, Maybe a third are pretty much, the same, but for the most part, if you got a good grasp of it, you should do okay. It's all multiple choice like the midterm. It's not going to be heavy on signs. It's going to be all encompassing of what we've gone over. So every little part of the manual, every class that we've had, there will be some questions. So, and I'll talk more about that probably on tomorrow's class. So let's get right into car crashes. Now, I know the state still uses the word accident, but I really like crashes. Accident almost seems like you have no responsibility. It just happened. I truly believe that the majority of crashes can be prevented or be lessened if we were more proactive and paying attention to what's happening up ahead and being better drivers. I mean, better control of the vehicle with speed, position. I think we can make the outcome different, better. So, this is the term that I want you to write down. Defensive driving means that you are taking an active involvement on the situation that is approaching up ahead, meaning that you are ready and willing to adjust your position, your speed, um, and giving up right of way at times. You're doing anything and everything to avoid contact with any object, car, people, landmarks. So you're just not letting things happen. So being a defensive driver can be broken down into these two rules. The first rule is being active in what you're looking for people's mistakes. And we all make mistakes when we drive. Okay, at times we may be thinking about something or talking to somebody, and our position isn't very good. Our speed's not very good. We don't know how close we are to somebody or someone's behind us. The second part is that when you do realize what's going on, are you able and willing to adjust? Okay? Too many times, and this is where road rage comes in. Is we are unwilling to change what we're doing, our position, our speed, giving up right of way. And that's when everything kind of falls apart. So, what can we do as a driver? I know some of this is kind of simplistic, but I think if we always kept in mind some of these simple facts, at times we take it for granted. I think if we always, and especially when you go for your driving test or when you're driving with your parents, I'll tell you this, and it's funny when this comes up in conversation with people. You're going to drive differently when you're all by yourself or with your friends than when you are with an adult. It's just a fact of life. Okay, you will drive the way you think your parents want you to drive when they're in the car. You usually drive better when you're with me. You're going to drive better when you're being looked at by the licensing examiner. But the true test is what type of driver you are. What are you going to be like when no one's watching? When you don't have an authority figure? That's the true test. I guess someone once said that, the true character of a person is the way that they act when no one is watching, because most people know when they have to be on their best behavior. And driving's no different. But because we're surrounded by metal, we think people can't see who we really are. Now, you may recognize somebody's car. Of course, we've got license plates, so it's very easy to report people that aren't doing the right thing. But for the most part, we think, hey, I don't know these people. They don't know me, so I'm going to do what I want to do. And, I don't care what they think. So being defensive is staying alert and keeping your eyes moving and knowing where you're where you want to place yourself and where you want to be up ahead. So look for those trouble spots. Keep a proper distance. Always expect the other person to do the wrong thing. All good points to be a safe driver. Now, unfortunately, there's going to come a time when you are doing everything right and it still breaks down, and someone is so bad and they're driving that they hit you. Okay. I will almost guarantee all of you at some point will be hit by a car. Okay. I'm just thinking personally, in my family, um, of my 3 kids, 2 people have hit 2 of my kids in a car. Nothing seriously. I know someone's hit me in the driver's ed vehicle. I know someone's bumped into my wife. Not a serious crash, but most of the time it's parking lots or turns. So you know that these things are going to happen. So let's talk about just not fender benders or small things. Let's talk about some of the more serious things that can happen to you while you're out there driving. Being hit from behind is probably the best place to be hit from because you're further away. If you're the only one in the car, they've got to be going pretty darn fast. And you're probably going to be at a stoplight or a stop sign, and they're just not paying attention. But they would have to be going pretty darn fast to really do a lot of damage to you personally if you're hit from behind. But this is what you've got to remember. If you are at a stop line, you are going to get pushed into the intersection. If you are stopped behind somebody and you don't have the following distance, and I've been getting after a lot of you, you need to be able to see the tires touching the pavement of the car that's in front of you. Because when you get hit from behind, you are going to get pushed into that car. Now, granted, you're not at fault, but still, now you're going to have damage to the back of your car where you were hit. Now you've got damage to the front of your car and to their car. And it's the person that hits you that's going to have to pay for the damages to everybody involved, regardless how many people keep on piling up and hitting each other. So kind of brace yourself between the steering wheel because there is going to be some force of your body going forward, and you want your headrest back up against the back of your head so your head hits it squarely and that there's no ramping. Remember, ramping is when your head goes over the top of the headrest. Now, most of you are not tall enough where that's going to be an issue. And cars are being built now where the headrest is up high enough where it doesn't even really have to be adjusted. I cannot remember a time. I don't know if any of you can remember. I think he graduated a year or 2, but his name was Jonty, Jonty, Jonty. I think he was like 6'10". He's one of the tallest people I've ever had in driver's ed. Now, that's a guy that has to make sure that everything is adjusted right when he's driving, because if we were hit, his head would go over the headrest. But everybody else, between 6'4" and 4'11", those are the heights that I usually get. I don't think there's going to be a serious problem. Now, being hit from the side is what we call T-boned. The driver's ed car was hit about 1.5 years ago. That's the last crash that I was in with a student. We were hit from the side in Durham on Madbury Road. I'm going to show you some pictures a little bit later tonight. Brace yourself. Make sure that you can steer quickly after you're hit because you don't want to get pushed into traffic. Depending on the severity of it, airbags will probably come out. You could get pushed into other vehicles. That's probably the biggest thing that you've got to be concerned about, being hit from the side. Now, head-on is by far the worst. So in your notes, you need to do everything that you possibly can to lower your speed as quickly as you possibly can. If you remember nothing else. And I think adrenaline is going to be happening, and you're going to be so anxious by knowing that within a couple seconds you're going to get hit. I think instinctively you'll go to the brake and hit it as hard as you can. Remember, you cannot break the brake. So hit it as hard as you can because you're trying to lower that impact. Now, if we have our seatbelt on, we know the seatbelt will take hold. It will prevent us from moving too far. We know that our upper body goes a certain distance, and we talked about 30 miles per hour, I think. But it's going about 1.5, 1.4 inches our chest. Head a little bit more because it's going over the shoulder harness, and of course, our hips are going to stay in the seat and only move slightly. But airbags definitely will come out, and airbags come out usually at speeds above 15 miles per hour. I was talking to someone from this class yesterday who had the unfortunate um, thing happen that he was in a car that was hit, and he said the airbags never came out. Very interesting. I would like to see the car where the damage was, where they were hit. The sensors in the front should come out if the speed is above 15 miles per hour. So in a reconstructing of a crash, I'm sure they're going to take a look at where the impact was and what this final speed was. But luckily, no one was hurt. And that might be another reason that the speed was so slow when they finally hit the vehicle, that it was below 15. If you're involved in a crash, so let's say that you do hit another vehicle, let's say that you are the one that's at fault, do not drive away. This is one of the most important things I want you to take away from tonight's class. Is a hit and run is going to get you in a heap of trouble. Heap of trouble. Do not drive away. That's a hit and run. Stop. Be responsible. Life is only going to get worse if you drive away. Now, this is where we're going to have a little bit of a difference of opinion. After talking to police officers, I've been given a couple different answers. So I want you to think about this, and I want you to write this down. It says, if you can, move your vehicle off the road so you do not block traffic. What should be included here, not only blocking traffic, but to be hit again. Because remember, airbags only come out once. So if you can move your vehicle, if it over a hill, around a corner, there's a chance you could get hit again. If the car is movable, I would move it. Now, when you move your vehicle, it's going to be very difficult to reconstruct what actually happened. I don't know about you, but if you were to ask someone about a particular story where two people were involved, and you were to separate those two people and ask them write down what happened during an incident, the way they would describe the incident would probably be somewhat different. Not totally different. There would be some things that are the same, but some things would be totally off. It's like one guy saying, this happened. The other guy said, this happened. They don't jive. They don't go together. I will tell you that most people that are at fault will try to put the blame on the other person. That's human nature, because you don't want to get in trouble. Now, who knows? You may be driving on a suspended license. You may be under the influence of alcohol or drugs. But most people will not tell the entire truth. And really, that's why, I'm a big sports fan. And I think instant replay is why is implemented, is because they can't trust the players to tell them what happened. And the referees or the umpires are having a hard time really kind of remembering what they thought that they saw. So it's very easy to go to the video. But in driving, we don't necessarily have that. We have that at intersections now with photo enforcement. So at some intersections, we do have cameras. And in downtown areas, we can get camera footage from other buildings. So there are some times where we can actually see what a vehicle actually did. But on a back road, there aren't going to be any cameras. So it's a he said, she said type of situation. So this is what I want you to write down. After being hit, if you're not in danger of getting hit again, I'm going to get out of here for a second. What I want you to write down, before you move your vehicle, I want you to take out your phone and I want you to take a picture of all four sides of your vehicle. So the front, the side, the back, and on the other side. So take a picture all the way around the vehicle and wide angle, far away. That way you can see the placement of the vehicles in relationship to the lines, into telephone poles. It's going to be very easy to reconstruct looking at where the vehicles. But when you start pulling away, when the vehicles start moving away and going off to the side, you can't figure out, well, who crossed the center line? Where are the car in relation to skid marks and things like that? It's going to be way, way too difficult to really figure out. Now, I took a lot of these bullets from the old manuals, so in the new one, I've got to check it and make sure that it kind of jives. But what I want you to write down, 911, that is the next thing that you need to do. is to make sure that we get emergency vehicles there to help with whether there's going to be a fire, if cars are sparking. You want the EMTs there, and of course, you want the police to help um, reconstruct the crash. And if you did your reading, you basically know the police will also help you fill out that accident report that we talked about. Get the names of all people involved. It's going to be important when you fill out your form, and your insurance company is going to need this information too. What to record: name and address of the other person, driver's license number, state of issue, make of a vehicle, model and the year of the vehicle, damage to the vehicle, insurance company, name of passengers and their address. So this is what I want you to write down. I want you to take a picture of their license. Ask the person that hit you, hey, can I see your license and registration? All the information that we have up here will be on your license and registration. Now, not everybody has paper or pen or pencil in their vehicle. All right, and you're going to be shooken up. You're not going to be thinking, right. I got to go write something down. Oh, this is, wonder if I forget something. Well, take a picture. You'll have it on your phone and go up to the cloud. I will show you in a moment the picture that I took of the college kid that hit the driver's ed car and why that was so helpful. Back to the name of the person. Another reason why you always want to ask for a license is people may be lying to you. Remember I told you people are trying to get away, make things less, severe than it really was. Anybody that's driving under a suspended license or under the influence of alcohol and drugs, it's been my experience that they will tell you that they don't have their license on them. And of course, you're not going to force the person to check, grab their back pocket and see if they got a wallet or grab a woman's purse. You're never going to do that. But you're going to ask for it. And if they say they don't have it, what do you do? All right. What I would do, I'd always call the police. I would never, ever let a person that does not have no identification just tell me stuff and then leave, because I think that they're going to always screw me over. And I've heard stories way too many times where that's the case. People on suspended license, alcohol and drugs, they don't want to get caught. They will say, I know I was at fault. I'm so sorry. I will pay for everything. My name is Justin Bieber, and this is my phone number. I mean, come on. I just made up that name. We all know Justin Bieber. They're going to make up some name. I'm Robert Small. They're going to make up a name, an address, and a phone number. Say, well, if you don't have a name license, then I'm going to just have to call the police and let the police take over from there. Now, also, you've got to be courteous and give the other information, your information, to the other driver. So you should say, hey, here's my license, here's my registration, take a picture of it. And that's just going to help get the ball rolling for your insurance and getting this file, this form that I'm going to give you, filed with the state. And you do have to file it. So note the details of the crash, date, time, location. That's part of the homework. If the crash involved a parked vehicle or property, you must leave a note and contact the police. Now, I just found this today. I had it in my file, and I said, hey, I'm going to put this up here. Watch this. Here's a person you all know. I think everybody knows Ben Affleck, the actor. Okay, it says even a glamorous movie star like Ben Affleck can get distracted behind the wheel. The actor was seen leaving his information behind for another driver after careening into a parked car. Now, I'm not too sure about when this took place. It's got to be a while ago because, like I said, I found it in my file under insurance. But I think most of you are probably kind of familiar that Mr. Affleck has had an alcohol problem, and he has been known to spend some time in a rehab. So I am sure, because everyone knows who he is, because he's quite recognizable, even with sunglasses on, that at least by leaving the note and then leaving the scene, he's not going to have to deal with people. Okay, and he may not want to deal with people if he had been drinking. Here's another person. Now, give the name and address and phone number. This is not nice. Okay. This is not the type of note that you want to leave. My name is Jack. I accidentally hit your car and someone saw me, so I'm pretending to write down my details. Sorry. Okay. That's not nice. Now remember, there could be cameras around, depending on what type of parking lot it is. So as I said, part of our homework is filling out the crash report. And this, I do need you, and this is why it's in bold type and it's underlined. You will be tested on this because of the final. Because I want you to come away from class knowing some things that you are going to be responsible for. There's nothing that will aggravate an adult, I think, more than dealing with a teenager behind the wheel of a car that has no clue of what they're doing when they're driving. Meaning that, okay, you're involved in a crash. You should know. You should have your license registration, where it's located, giving the information. So when you're not giving the information to the other person, they're going to probably be a little upset at you. That's another reason why you want the police there, because you don't want them to be too abusive. All right. So New Hampshire law requires that if anyone is killed or injured or the total combined property damage is more than $1,000, so what's in bold type and underline is what you'll be tested on. So $1,000 damage, file a report to the DMV within 15 days. If it's beyond 15 days, there's a good chance they could follow up and cite you, give you a citation for complying, and you're going to have a fine to pay. Okay, most people don't know that, but okay, it has to be part of your record, and it does go on to your driver's license, and it's going to stay on your license being involved in a crash for 3 years. Okay, so this is where they get all this information from the filing, from the insurance company. So if you're not sure whether you should do it, still do it. If an officer is there, ask them, are you going to file a report or do I still need to file it? Because if he files it, he's going to probably say, I'll take care of it. You're okay. That's what you want. By the way, Portsmouth is not very good at helping you out. They just give you a little piece of paper and they say it's your responsibility. Park well off the road for a distance of at least 200 feet. Place flares in front, behind the vehicle. Flashes will give people an idea that there was a crash. As we said before, you're going to call the police. You want the ambulance there. You want the fire trucks. You just don't want a fire to break out and people to get hurt. If people are trapped, be very careful of moving someone that cannot leave a vehicle on their own power. There is a law called the Good Samaritan Law, which means that if you help someone medically and you stay within your skill level as a first aid person or someone trained in CPR, it's very difficult to sue you if it goes to court. If you're not trained, you probably shouldn't, unless it's a life or death situation. Wait for the trained personnel come, and they'll take care of things. But if a car's on fire, it's going to be too long before an ambulance comes. So I would definitely pull somebody out. If I happen to pull their arm out of the socket, so be it. I just don't want them to burn to death. So use judgment and be smart on what you do. Oh, here we go. Here's my crash. So I took this from Google Earth. I think everybody knows this is Madbury Road. Just as you leave the junior high at the four-way stop. In between the silver car and the white car, you can see that there is a... yeah, it's a good question, Ben. What happens if both people file a report and they contradict? It does not matter, because at that point, it's just filing the necessary, name, address, stuff about your vehicle. So the state has that. If it goes to court, that is where litigation will take place, and lawyers will basically try to find out who is more to blame. But that's a good question, because most of the time people's story will be different. So they're not really looking for the description. Well, I guess they could probably figure out if you're lying too. And there's another thing. I want to show you too. That's a good question. Let me throw this up here real quick because of Ben's question. Um, your cars now come with computers. So when someone in a car crash says, I was going the speed limit at 30 miles per hour when this car came out in front of me and I slammed on my brakes and I hit them. Well, they can basically take a look at that computer in your vehicle and they could probably tell how fast you are actually going. So, yeah, be careful how you explain things in your report, because if you contradict yourself and knowingly contradict yourself, it could come back to bite you. But this is an insurance company that will give you a benefit on your insurance rates if your car computer shows that you're driving safely. Now, what does it do? It does have an indicator of those that are going, and I don't mean by going like 1 or 2 over the speed limit. They probably, like I do, give you a little bit above 5, 7 above, and then it also can gauge how hard you brake, because the harder you brake, they know that you're probably driving too fast or getting too close to people. So it can give an insurance company some idea of your driving habits, and they're going to reward people that have basic, good, safe driving techniques. And those of you that want to get the benefit of it, but it shows the opposite, yeah, I think it could come back and cause you to pay more for insurance. And we'll talk more about insurance a little bit later tonight. So this is where the crash took place. That is the damage to the driver's ed vehicle. There's probably a little bit more on the back door than what you see right here. But you can see the color of the paint. You can see that it's pushed in for the most part. I don't know if I have the other car. There's their damage right there. So let me go back to mine. All right. So what I want you to do on the comments for YouTube, I want you to write down how much damage, how much did it cost me to get that fixed. Let me get out of here for a second. We're going to give a giveaway tonight. All right, tonight's giveaway to the person that guesses closest to the damage to the vehicle will get themselves a tire gauge from Driving Towards Zero, the New Hampshire Driving TZ agency, which is a youth agency for safe driving. So I've got a tire gauge that I'm going to give out to somebody that can guess closest. If there are 2 people that are the same or the really close, then maybe I'm going to have to find a way to get another tire gauge, or we'll make it something different. Or I'll just draw out. I'll draw out if there's 3 people, then I'll draw from the 3 because I only have 1 tire gauge. I don't know if I can get another one. So let's see what people come up with. All right. So this is the damage to the college kid. I honestly believe that because it's a smaller vehicle and it's Saturday morning, I'm going to think that she was probably on her phone distracted. She did have a passenger with her. And by the way, she called her dad after the crash and said, "Hey, Dad, I just had another crash." So that made me realize maybe her driving isn't the best. It is a Massachusetts plate, but I did kind of black it out. And same thing here. I blacked out a lot of the information. But see, when you take a picture of a license and registration, you can see the registration number. The model year is 2004. It was a Toyota Corolla. There's their insurance company, the identification number on the vehicle, and there's the address down below of the driver. And here's the driver. She's from Littleton, Massachusetts. So it gives a little bit of information about her. So this was very easy to fill out an accident report, crash report after. Let's talk about when you do come to a car crash and you're not involved. You just happen to be coming up over a hill, around a corner, and all of a sudden there are 2 cars in the road. Pull your car off to the side of the road, put your flashes on, and then go give aid to other people. So if the car seems to be okay, see if the person can move the vehicle, see if they can get out of their vehicle. But if it's hit something like a wire, if it looks smoke like it's coming from the engine compartment. Try to get everybody out. If they can't get out, then you're going to have to pull them out, like we said before. If you have some training on first aid, the Good Samaritan law will basically help you. Electrical wires is a tricky thing. Electrical wires, be extremely careful. If they hit a telephone pole and there are wires sparking on top of a car, stay away. Do not go towards the vehicle. Call 911. Let someone else handle the situation. If you're involved in a crash and you hit a telephone pole and you come to, you're a little bit groggy and you see sparks flying and stuff like that, just remember, you're alive. Okay? You may be hurt, but you're alive. Your next movement could be life or death if you have live wires on your car. Let me get out of the let me get up to here to me. All right. When you're in a vehicle, okay, and you're in the driver's seat, when you open up the door, your next reaction is to take your left foot, right? You're in a seat, you're sitting down, is to take your left foot and step out onto the ground. Now, with your left foot on the ground, your right foot is still inside the vehicle. You are now grounded, which means you're going to get electrocuted. So, with electrical wires on your vehicle, what you want to do is you want to make sure you kind of go off at an angle, open the door, stand on the door jamb, hold the door, and jump backwards or, lean forward from the side of the door and jump out with both feet on the door jamb. So you've got both feet on the door jamb and you're jumping forward, or if you do it backwards, you can do it backwards. You don't have to jump a big distance, but I would call the power company. I wouldn't risk it. I know I'm still living. I'm in the car. It's not going to electrocute me because it would have done it by now. So I'm going to stay until someone comes. But if it looks like the fire is going to take place, you may want to jump free of the car. Stay with injured people. Be very careful about the information that you give people. When someone is involved in a car crash, and I have come across a car crash with a couple students before in my lifetime, and a lot of times people are going to ask questions. How's my brother? How's my sister? Is the other person okay? They're going to ask a lot of questions. Try to keep them focused on themselves and say people are taking care of the other people involved in a crash, because usually a lot of people come. Once there's a car crash, you're going to get at least 4 or 5 people pulling over. So you're not going to be a lone soldier dealing with the whole situation, usually, unless it's a back road. But you don't want to say something like, if there were, let me give an example. If a girl asked you, how's my baby? And you look around inside the car and you don't see a child in the car, I would not tell the person, what baby? I don't see a baby, because that's just going to make them hysterical. Just say, we're going to take care of you. The ambulance is coming. Everybody's going to be okay. I mean, to the best of your ability, that could be true. I don't want you to, you're not really lying, but you also don't want to say, child. I don't see a child. Maybe it's in the woods. I wouldn't say that. Because if a child was in the back and they didn't have a child in a child restraint, was not in a seatbelt, and the car rolled, there's a good chance the child left the vehicle. So at least there was a child involved. Hopefully someone's with you and they will pick up on that and maybe start looking. But I would not tell somebody, I can't find your child. Now, one of the worst things that ever happened in the driver's ed vehicle is we hit a dog. We killed a dog, and we had to call the police. We had to fill out a crash report, and we had to go door to door, at least 2 to 3 houses, before we found the owner. Now, the dog was not on a run, which it should have been. The dog was chasing something. It was not the student's fault. There was nothing the student could have done to avoid hitting the dog. Now, most of you know, at least some of you know, I have a brake on my side because I've used it on a lot of you. I could not even use my brake, and I could not even grab the steering wheel to help the student. So neither one of us could do anything. I couldn't even speak it out. It happened that quickly. So it was very traumatic. And by the way, the driver did not want to drive after that, and that's understandable. Uh, but things like that do happen. But we wanted to be responsible, so that's why we went door to door, and we called the police. But luckily, nothing like that happened again. I want you to think about the difference between a domesticated animal like a dog and a cat and a squirrel and a turkey. They have no parents, they have no family. So, yes, we don't want to hit a turkey. Yes, we don't want to hit a squirrel. So, we'll slow down slightly. We'll move to the right. We'll move to the left, but we're never going to put other people in danger. Ever. Human life above animal life. You may do a little bit more for a cat or a dog because it does belong to somebody. But still, if it comes down to hitting a cat or a dog or crossing over the center line, going towards a tractor trailer or a bigger vehicle, we've got to just face the fact this is the best that we can do. The best that we can do. And luckily, we haven't had that happen. Now, we've hit squirrels and chipmunks, every once in a while a bird, but for the most part, we haven't had any large animals. So, what I want you to write down, and the state provided this to us a while back, just a short clip about wild animals. So, what I want you to write down, the worst animal in New Hampshire to hit is by far the moose. They're about the size of a cow or a horse. You hit something like that and it goes on the top of your vehicle, you're going to be the one that gets hurt. They may even, limp away. Same thing with a deer. So moose, deer, bear, and turkey. Okay, right down. Those are the ones you got to really watch out for. I always tell students when they say, "Well, what should I really be worried about hitting?" Anything that's bigger than a microwave. So a dog is bigger than a microwave. But a squirrel, chipmunk, a possum, nah. I'll move to the right. I'll move to the left, but I'm not going to be too concerned. So let's take a look what the state says about wildlife.
There are approximately 1,500 collisions reported between wildlife and motor vehicles. On average, 1 to 2 people are killed and over 1,300 people are injured in these collisions. The average cost for repairs to a vehicle involved in a collision with a deer, a bear, or a turkey is around $4,000. However, vehicle repair costs after hitting a moose average $23,000. There are 4 wild animals that can cause significant vehicle damage or personal injury. The following video focuses primarily on moose. But keep in mind, you're more likely to hit a bear, a turkey, or deer on New Hampshire's roadways. If you want to lessen your chances of hitting a wild animal, please listen carefully to and abide by the following safe driving instructions.
Wildlife can cross the road anywhere. You need to be constantly scanning the sides of the roads. If you do see wildlife, slow down. And be aware that at night your visual acuity is greatly impacted. You simply cannot see what is coming up onto the roadbed. So you need to drive slower to account for the fact that at any moment something may pop into the road.
I looked in the mirror to see if I could cut in, and I couldn't. I looked ahead, and 10 yards from me was this big bull moose standing there. And I never had time to touch the brakes. My mind said moose, bang, it was that quick.
The moose fell on top of right on my roof, and then crushed my roof and my head and everything in the process, and broke my spinal cord.
You see that big thing standing in the road, and you stop and you look and you realize you're looking at one big, living, moving animal. And they are. I mean, even for me, as many as I've seen around here, when I see just that one stopped and looking at you, that's a big animal.
Moose are large somewhat homely, but as John Sutton and Dartmouth Hitchcock calls them, majestic animals. They reflect our environment.
Well, moose are perfectly adapted to live in the North Country. Their legs are 4 feet long. They're almost 6 feet tall or better at the shoulder. They weigh about 1,000 pounds on average as an adult. They can weigh as much as 1,400 pounds. They have a very heavy hide and very thick hair coat. They are just perfectly adapted to the cold and deep snow. If you hit a moose going faster than 55 miles per hour, these animals are 6 feet tall or better at the shoulder. You hit them at the leg, at the height of their legs. They clear the legs out from underneath them. Their body comes down. If you are going better than 55 miles an hour, your vehicle is continuing at quite a rate of speed as the body is falling down. The body hits either in your windshield or right on top of the roof. And that's 1,000 pounds that's coming through the windshield at you or coming down on top of the roof.
There's a couple things that happen to the people in the front seat. Normally, the first thing that happens is they obviously get covered with glass because of all that fragmentation from the windshield being destroyed. Secondly, the roof tends to collapse down on top of them, and because of that, they usually end up with either head injuries, neck injuries, spinal injuries of some sort.
They're covered with ticks, particularly in the earlier part of the year. Thousands of them. They then find themselves into the clothes and hair of the occupants of the vehicle. And they're unpleasant. They don't cause illness. They just require removal. The animal may bleed. And very often when they're inside the vehicle, their sphincters relax. And so they defecate and let loose their bowels within the vehicle.
The moose was on top of the vehicle, and after when it got over the initial shock of being hit, it started struggling, and the moose actually kicked out one of the rear windows while it was on top of her car.
And that salt that we've been using all winter long on the roads is something that moose desperately need come spring. So they will come out to the road to utilize the salt, and they'll continue to do that all through the spring, summer, and early fall months.
And they're so black you don't see them till you're right on top of it. People say, oh, you can't see a moose? You know, it's so big. But they blend in. Your headlights, you know, finally will pick them up.
The other thing, at least especially up in the North Country, but it's helpful anywhere, I would say, is to scan the roadway a lot when you're driving. Really pay attention. To look further down the roadway than I think a lot of people are kind of trained to look more directly in front of their car rather than looking at the furthest point that they can see when they're driving, which would give them time to react and prevent a collision. It's difficult with moose because they're just so hard to see, especially at night. You usually don't see them until you're right up on them.
When it's getting dusk to dark, use your high beams. You turn your headlights on, use your high beams. Obviously not at other cars coming at you, but if you're out there by yourself, flip your high beams up. Watch your speed. Keep it down. Leave yourself enough time so if something jumps out in front of you, hopefully you can at least slam on your brakes and either minimize the damage or just not get involved at all.
Their eyes do reflect light, but because they're so tall, I mean, their head can be 7 feet above the tarmac. You're not looking that high off the roadway in order to see that eye shine. And typically they may not be turning to look at you because moose, because they're so large, really aren't afraid of very much. So they may be looking down the road, they may be looking directly across the road. It's hard to see them at night.
Moose are the largest animals in the woods. They are afraid of nothing.
Moose that don't run are moose that live for another day. The worst thing they can do is run from their primary predator, which is a wolf pack. So they have evolved to stand their ground, which also makes it not very good for them when a car is approaching. A lot of moose will stand their ground if they consider it to be a threat rather than run.
And what we have to remember is this is a factor of an animal who is not afraid of a car or a human being or a tractor trailer. They have no issues with that, and they tend to just stroll out and do whatever they want to do whenever they want to do it.
And you don't know really when they're going to bust right out of the woods and make a run across the road. So when you are in moose country and it says watch for moose, heads up, pay attention to it.
Drive 55, keep your high beams on whenever possible, and scan, scan, scan for something coming up into the road.
You're going to lose. You're just going to lose if you hit one. And the hard part is maybe you'll survive, but your friends won't.
Okay, sorry about the laggy video. It's fine on my end, so I don't know if it's just being processed at a slower rate. But one of the things that they talked about is be very careful at night and the use of your headlights. So high beams are so important in giving you a wider angle of your path of travel. So your low beams are going to be much lower and much more narrower of what you can see off to the side. So spend a little bit more time. And if you ever notice that a lot of roadkill is not just off near the white edge line, it's usually towards the middle of the road, is because once it wanders out, there's going to be a little bit of a delay before you get to your break. And the headlights will usually, at least with some of the smaller animals, kind of, freeze them in their spot. And then you're not able to, swerve in the other lane, maybe because of other vehicles or whatever. And they're getting hit underneath your car. But that's where there's going to be a major problem. So just scan the road just a little bit more effectively. Okay, let's talk about insurance. The interesting thing about insurance in New Hampshire is that once you become an adult at the age of 18, if you own the vehicle outright, New Hampshire does not require you to have insurance. It's one of, I believe, 3 states. We're going to see another video in just a moment. Hopefully that video won't be too laggy. So mandatory insurance is not something that we have in New Hampshire. Other states in New England, like Massachusetts, there is a mandatory liability insurance that you must have. But what I want you to underline in your notes or in your manual and write down in your notes is that if you are involved in a car crash and you have no insurance, you're going to be responsible for payments of all damages. So that means if you hit a car and they go to the hospital and the total combined is $30,000, that is what you're paying. Insurance will help take care of that if you have a good insurance policy. So we're going to spend a little bit of time right now talking about insurance. What is your responsibility when it comes to a car crash? To give you some bad news, New Hampshire is the costliest state for new drivers to get insurance. Notice we're number 1. The costliest state is New Hampshire. The average premium is 111%. Okay? Very expensive for a young driver. This is why most people, and I'm assuming that you're going to do this, and I have this discussion with your parents tonight, is that if you go on your parents' policy, it's going to be a lot cheaper than if you were to go out on your own. When would the state require you? Now, we said there's no mandatory, but does the state ever make you get insurance? Yeah, they do. If you've had a DWI, failing to stop, report a crash, homicide, second-time reckless driving. A lot of times, reckless driving is a DWI. If they don't have enough evidence, then a lot of times they'll plead down to reckless driving. And then, of course, if your driving record is so bad, they're going to require you to have insurance. It's called an SR22. You've got to have it for 3 years, and it's very expensive. I think on average, probably between $3,000 and $5,000 a year to have. That's expensive, $3,000 to $5,000. Now, remember, this is insuring you as a driver. This has nothing to do with your car. See, when we think of car insurance, we think about, if I have a fender bender, they're going to, buy me a new fender, or they're going to do, this is a different type of insurance. So remember, there are different types of insurance. This is being responsible type of insurance, what we call liability. All right, let's take a look at someone that knows a little bit about insurance. So I found an agent that did a video. I used to have Liberty Mutual life insurance, and they said, "Oh, you're a driver's ed teacher. We've actually had a training video that we have for young students." And I said, "Oh, can you send me a copy?" So here is Liberty Mutual explaining insurance. Now I'll break it down after the video, so you have a little bit more of a better concept of how this is going to affect you and what to make sure that you have on your policy.
Hello, my name is Lisa LaLiberty. I'll be speaking on the basics of auto insurance. For most people, buying an automobile is their first major purchase. Actually, a new car is second only to a home as the most expensive purchase many consumers make. With vehicle prices averaging over $28,000, it's easy to see why one would want to protect that investment. Before we talk about coverage for the automobile itself, I'd like to start with what many people believe is the most important coverage of all, liability coverage. Liability coverage pays for the injuries or damage you or someone driving your car caused to other people or their property. The two liability coverages are called bodily injury liability and property damage liability. Every state has different laws dictating the minimum coverage you must carry for this. Some states require you to prove you have insurance before registering a motor vehicle, and other states use the honor system, where you only have to provide proof if you have an accident or violation. A typical state-required minimum coverage is 25, 50, 10, and I'll provide an example shortly to explain what that means. There are 4 states that do not require drivers to carry any liability coverage. Just because it's not required by law doesn't mean you don't need it. Let's say you have an accident. You're distracted momentarily and rear-end the BMW in front of you. There are 3 people in it, all of whom suffer some injury. If you're carrying liability coverage of 25, 50, 10, that means your insurance company will cover the cost of any one person's injuries, rehabilitation expenses, pain and suffering, and time lost from work up to $25,000. But they will not pay more than $50,000 for the accident, regardless of the number of people injured. This is the bodily injury portion. And your insurance company will pay up to $10,000 for the property damaged. So 3 people are injured. Let's say their injuries total $75,000. And the BMW has rear-end damage of $13,000. Your policy will pay for $50,000 for all injuries and $10,000 for the property damage. Where does the remaining $25,000 for bodily injury and $3,000 for property damage come from? Once your policy pays the maximum limits, you could be held personally responsible for the remaining amount. It's generally recommended that you carry more than the state minimum coverage to protect yourself from this financial risk. The next coverage under an automobile policy is medical payments coverage. This provision protects you and your passengers if you're hurt in a car accident, regardless of who's at fault. The coverage also extends to you and your family members if you're a passenger in someone else's car or if you're a pedestrian injured by an automobile. Medical payments coverage pays the medical bills resulting from an accident up to a per-person maximum, commonly $5,000. There are no deductibles and no waiting period under this coverage, and prescription drugs related to the injuries are covered. Consider that accident with the BMW again. Let's say that you and your passenger are both injured and taken by ambulance to the hospital. Medical payments coverage of $5,000 will cover the cost of the ambulance ride, the emergency room visit, and subsequent doctor's visits up to $5,000 per person. If your medical bills total $7,000 and your passengers total $3,000, the policy will pay $8,000 under this coverage. Some states have a medical payments coverage known as Personal Injury Protection, or PIP. This coverage may have a deductible, and it may allow you to collect for lost wages and rehabilitation expenses, 2 things that regular medical payments coverage does not cover. A third coverage provided by an automobile insurance policy is uninsured and underinsured motorist coverage. This coverage is quoted similarly to bodily injury liability. Even though mandatory insurance laws exist in 48 states, nearly 15% of all accidents are caused by uninsured drivers. Uninsured motorist coverage provides protection for you and your passengers when you're injured in an accident with an uninsured motorist. It will cover your medical bills, rehabilitation expenses, lost wages, pain and suffering, things you could have claimed against the at-fault party's insurance if they had it. Underinsured motorist coverage will cover those same losses if the at-fault party's coverage is insufficient for your loss. Keep in mind, in most states, the uninsured, underinsured motorist coverage applies to injury only and not for damage to your vehicle. Protection for your automobile is provided under the collision and comprehensive portions of a policy. Collision coverage applies when you have an accident involving another vehicle or an object, such as a telephone pole, a guardrail, a building, or when you overturn your vehicle. Comprehensive coverage applies in losses involving fire, theft, vandalism, broken glass, hitting an animal, flood or hail damage, or other losses not caused by collision. These coverages have a deductible, the amount you must pay before the insurance company pays for damages. Common collision deductibles are $500 or $1,000, and common comprehensive deductibles are $100 or $250. If your automobile is financed, then you're required by the bank or financer to carry comprehensive and collision coverages until that loan is paid off. It's important to note, an insurance company will never pay more to fix your vehicle than the vehicle is worth. Two other coverages available through many insurance companies are towing and emergency road service and rental car reimbursement. While these coverages are optional, I always recommend them as part of my full coverage package. Automobile insurance rates are based on many factors, including where you live, your age, what you drive, how much you drive, and the coverage you carry. One way to keep your insurance costs down is to take high comprehensive and collision deductibles. As a vehicle gets older and is not financed, many people choose to drop these two coverages completely as a way to save money. Additionally, many people choose to pay for small claims out of their own pockets as a way to keep their rates down. But remember, the coverage you carry is just one of the factors contributing to the cost of insurance. There are things you can do to make sure you get the best price possible. The first is to keep your driving record clean. Your driving record is used as a predictor of future experience. Accidents and violations stay on your record for 3 years, and major violations and suspensions stay on for 5 years. Many companies now use a scoring model that combines your driving record with a variety of other information, including certain elements of your credit history and prior insurance claims to determine your cost for insurance. This means that paying bills on time could affect your insurance rate, as could the number of claims you file on your policy. Automobile insurance can be confusing, but a little knowledge can go a long way in providing you the protection you need.
Okay, I know that this is kind of confusing, and a lot of you are probably saying, my parents take care of this. Why do I need to know about this? Well, at some point in your life, probably coming up a lot sooner than you realize, that you're going to have to do this on your own. So having some basic information, I think, is vital to saving you a lot of money. Let me explain it this way. Insurance is a lot like buying a bottle of water. If you went to Hannaford's to buy a bottle of water, it could be like 99 cents. If you went to the gas station, it'd be like $1.79, $2.19. If you bought that same bottle, now we're talking the same bottle, you had that same bottle at Fenway Park, that same bottle could be $5. It's the same bottle, it's the same water, it's the same amount, but you're paying different prices for it. Insurance is the same way. So I want you to write this down. There are so many insurance companies, so it's the same thing. State Farm, Progressive, Liberty, Geico. There's so many more. There's some private companies too. That the more companies that you check in with to get a quote from, the more likely you're finding that Hannaford a bottle of water for 99 cents rather than calling one person and actually it's the Fenway Park. You're getting the insurance at its highest possible rate. It's the same insurance that you could get through Progressive, but you're getting it through State Farm, which is much, much higher. So shop around. That is one way that you're going to really, really save on insurance. But let's kind of break down some definitions here. So one of these terms will be on your final. Policy premium and deductible. I think this is three key terms that kind of puts things in perspective of what you're purchasing when you get insurance. So a policy is a legal contract between you and an insurance company. They write it up and you sign it to agree to the terms. So it's a legal binding contract between you and the insurance company. Now that policy costs them a certain amount of money, and that certain amount of money is called a premium. And you pay it for a year. It's based upon a year. So let's make it really simple, $1,200. Now we know we can take $1,200, we can break it down multiple ways. We could go monthly at $100. We could go quarterly, where we're paying $300. We could do biannually, which is $600. So we could break it up into different time frames. The thing you need to remember is the more you're breaking it down into smaller amounts, the more it's going to cost you. Well, what do you mean? Well, you said it was $1,200. Yeah, but that's if you pay for it up front. If you paid for it twice a year at $600, it may be $610, $620 each payment. So they made an extra $40 for administrative. You break it down monthly rather than $100, it could be $120, $130. So over the course of the year, they're making an extra $300. So just remember that the more you break it down, probably the more it's going to cost you. It's not the same. Now, this is the big one that I want you to think about. This is where you're going to save the most amount of money. So put a little asterisk next to this comment. The higher your deductible, the lower your premium will be. A deductible is the amount of money that you will pay to the insurance company on your first crash. And I know a lot of you are thinking, well, wait a minute here. I'm just paying them $1,200 and you're telling me that I just had a fender bender and I have to pay $250? That doesn't seem like a good deal. Well, it doesn't on the surface, but if you go with it, you can get a zero deductible. Let's go back to the $1,200. So let's say it's $1,200 with a $250 deductible. If you wanted zero deductible, where nothing comes out of your pocket for any crash, you're going to pay $1,800. Whoa, 18? That's a lot more than $1,200. Yeah, it's $600 more. Well, I'd rather go $1,200 and $250. Yeah, exactly. Because you've got some skin in the game. They know that you may drive differently if you've got to pay $250 for every crash that you're involved. So the higher your deductible. Well, wonder, you said it was $250 deductible for a $1,200 premium. Wonder if I went to a $500 deductible, then maybe your premium will be $900 or $1,000. It goes down. If I go to a $1,000 deductible, what happens to my premium? Oh, maybe it's $750, $800. So if you think you're going to be a good driver, always go with a high deductible. My wife and I, on our own policy, we always go with a $500 or $1,000 deductible, depending on how new the car is. Always. So always pay more. Now, I want you to realize, and I'm not going to get into this, this is the minimum that you have to have. If the state says you need to have insurance, you have to have these conditions. And I'm not going to go through most of it, except that I want you to look at the bottom right-hand side where it says 1, 100,000, 2, 300,000, 3, should have 50,000. So if you replace those numbers over into the time or over into the slot where the parenthesis is for number 1. So injury to death is in 25,000, it's 100,000. That would be what a basic insurance policy would look like. So the average person is paying the numbers to the bottom right, but a person that's a bad driver, but he has to have insurance, he's going to probably go with the cheapest. This is the cheapest he can purchase and still drive legally in New Hampshire. So I just wanted to show you that. Put a star next to this, liability. This is the most important type of insurance. I will tell you personally that I would always have liability. insurance, I would never drive a car without liability insurance because it takes care of the other person. That's what I want you to write down. The liability insurance on your policy takes care of the other person. So do they go to rehab? Do they go to the hospital? Did they die? How many people were in the car? This takes care of everybody in the other vehicle. That way you're not going to probably get sued because your insurance company is going to take care of everything. That's what we want. All right, so liability is the most important. The other two that I want you to be familiar with is collision and comprehensive. This replaces your car or repairs your car for something that you did. Isn't that kind of cool? You drive too fast, go around a corner, go off the edge of the road, you hit a tree. You're at fault because you're driving stupid and you hit a tree. But guess what? Your insurance company will help you get your car repaired because you have car insurance. You have collision. Comprehensive would probably be more for a natural disaster like a flood or hail, something like we talked about. Nothing that you did, but something came by and, the hail came down and broke your window. It's going to take care of that. But try to keep your deductible as much as you can afford, but not less than $500. And usually as a car gets older, like all my kids drove old driver's ed vehicles. Once I didn't want my driver's ed car anymore, I gave it to each child because I wasn't going to buy them a new car. So you want transportation, you get the old driver's ed vehicle. It's going to probably, and every single vehicle that I had lasted through college for them. So they entered college with a used vehicle and they made it through. Once they were out, then they had to get their own vehicles. So I always only kept liability on their policy when they were driving. And all of them are good drivers. They never were causes of any crashes. Personal injury is a lot like medical. So if you have a good medical insurance policy with your parents, you probably aren't going to need personal injury because it takes care of medical bills for you and your passengers. Of course, your passengers can't piggyback on your medical insurance, so this is probably why you have a little bit on your policy. Other types that can be added onto your insurance policy is roadside assistance and rental. I never do those because I have AAA, which I think is a better program than what's through the insurance company. And a rental, I have another vehicle at home that if I had to use for driver's ed, I can equip it with the brake. Within a couple hours, I can get it back up and running. I also have a pickup truck. So personally, if I needed a vehicle, I have one in my driveway. So I don't need that. So what I'm trying to say here is all these slides that I just went through, liability, comprehensive, collision, medical, roadside, rental, and then there's going to be uninsured, which is the next slide. All these have a dollar amount. And when you take these dollar amounts and you add them up, that is the cost of your insurance policy. So what I want you to write down, if you take these two off your insurance policy, you may save $100. So rather than $1,000, it'll be $900. I don't know how many people have parents that are in the insurance business, but remember, insurance agents, that's their life. That's their livelihood. So they want to make money. So when you come into their office, if they're honest, they're going to do you right. They're going to give you a decent policy. But if you don't ask the right questions, and if you deal with a person that isn't reputable, I will tell you, because I used to sell insurance, not car insurance, but life insurance. There are a lot of people that they're not lying, but they're not honest. They're not upfront. They're not looking out for your best interest. It's very easy for an insurance agent to pad a policy by $200-$300, which they make money off. So be very careful of who you deal with. Now, because of the internet and people know stuff like this, and after taking a driver's ed program now, hopefully you know this stuff, it'd be a little bit wiser and smarter when you start asking questions to an insurance agent, like, wonder if I went higher on my deductible, or can we take off that roadside assistance? This is an older car. Can we take comprehensive off? You're going to save yourself hundreds of dollars. So uninsured, Massachusetts is required. This is the medical rehabilitation. So this takes care of you and your passengers. So like I said, it's a good thing to have. I have been hit by an uninsured driver before, and they didn't have insurance, and I tried to get it from them. I tried to get them to pay for the damages, and it never worked. But I had this on my policy, so my insurance company took over and made the payments, and I didn't have to pay out of pocket. And I had a very low deductible on this particular car, so that helped out too. Here's a question that I want you to think about. Be very careful once you get your license and you have a vehicle if you let one of your friends drive it, okay? Because a lot of people assume, okay, that they've got insurance on their vehicle at home, so if they drive my car and they get it in a crash, then their insurance company's going to pay for the damage to my car. No. If you take a look underneath the picture, it says it's your insurance policy that is responsible for your car when someone else is driving it and is involved in an accident. A common myth is that if your friend is borrowing your car, has insurance, then it's your friend's insurance policy that covers any damage. Not true. Big, because in high school, we're really friendly with a lot of people. And a lot of people will say, hey, can I just borrow your car to go into town and get something to drink? You're on the same baseball team. And you're thinking, okay, yeah, I got to get my cleats on and I got to, take a batting practice, sure. Take the car, go into town. Hey, if he fools around in your car and he hits a pedestrian, that's your car. That's your insurance policy that's going to be paying, not his. Now, you could sue your friend. That should be a lot of fun. So be very careful of what you allow your friends to do with your vehicle. And a lot of times it's boyfriend, girlfriend. I think that's where we find the biggest, because, you're a couple and you like the person. So you're more apt to give the car to them. I think if it's a guy and it's a guy friend, or a girl and it's a girlfriend, I guess you might let them if you're really super close. But I find where most people make their biggest mistakes is when they give it to boyfriends or girlfriends. Here's a slide that I wanted to show you because it is a common myth that males pay more. It's not necessarily true. I think on average they do. But if you take a look at the chart here, there are a few companies where, like in Allstate, the female is paying more than the male. Let's see. Same thing with the Hartford. Okay, $12 extra for the female. Nationwide. So like I said, the bottle of water, it's the same policy. This is the same policy, but look at the difference. Who would want to deal with Liberty Mutual, by the way? It's pretty expensive. And I used to have Liberty, like I told you. And when my oldest became a licensed driver and I saw what it was going to cost me having my child on my policy, I decided I'm going to do what I teach my students to do. I'm going to shop this around. So I called around to 3 different companies. From what Liberty was quoting me to what I actually ended up paying, I saved $800. $800. Same policy, different company. Okay, so tell this to your parents tonight. Talk to your parents. I will guess. Okay, let's see. Tomorrow when we have class, I'm going to want you to put this on the comment section so you can answer the question. So here's the question you've got to ask your parents tonight. How long have we been with our insurance company? I will bet that 80% of you will say over 2 to 3 years. So here, show your parents that you're learning something. Say Mr. Toll says if we stay with a company 2 to 3 years, we could shop it around to a different company, same policy, and probably save a couple $100. I will guarantee if your parents were to get on the phone this weekend or go online and look for the same policy with different insurance companies, they're going to save at least $200-300. Guaranteed. Guaranteed they'll find a cheaper, because another company wants your business. And guess what happens if you stay with that company after 2-3 years? They keep on jacking up the prices little by little. And you keep on thinking, I like the company. They seem pretty nice. I haven't made a claim. It's only $40. Before you know it, it's over $200. And you're thinking, wow, I've never made a claim with this company. I'm paying, $200 more than I did 2-3 years ago. Doesn't seem right. So check it out. And by the way, part of your homework on that worksheet, and we're going to get to that in just a little bit, is to find out who do you have insurance with. most companies will give you a card. I didn't bring mine in tonight. I'll bring it hopefully for tomorrow's class. But you keep it in your glove compartment. When you're involved in a crash, like we said, take a picture of the license registration. Also take a picture of their insurance information. Who do they have insurance with? Who's their agent? So part of your homework is to fill out that form, and I'll get to that. I think I only got 2 more slides. So compare the rates every 2-3 years. Like I just said, don't carry collision comprehensive. I talked about that. Increase the deductible to reduce your premiums. We talked about that. Oh, here's a good one. Take the winter driving course. That will lower your insurance rates. Take some other type of driving program later that maybe handling skids. That's all good stuff, and your insurance company will probably reward you with that. Now, here's a big one. Since we're still in school, carry good grades. Make sure that you are a B student or a certain grade point average or the top of your class. They will reward you with like 20% off your insurance. When my nephew, who was a straight C student, he could never get an A and B in his life, if his life depended upon it. My brother told me that when he was in high school, probably 15 years ago, he could have saved $380 a year. He kept on saying, if my son got good grades, I could save close to $400 every year. That's good money. That's good money. Go on your parents' policy. Pay bills on time. The car that you drive, cars that are popular with thieves, cars that are very expensive to repair, guess what? If it's expensive to repair, it's going to get passed on to you. All right? So these are things that you need to think about. It's more than just the color of the car, the stereo, the wheels that are on the car. You got to think about, what is my insurance registration going to cost me? Because that's something that you pay every year. We talked about the car app that kind of basically takes a look at your driving skill as you drive. These are the companies that do it. The other thing is that other than the state form that you have to fill out, some companies actually let you fill out your crash report. Now, remember, this is different. This is dealing with the insurance company. This is not the state. The state, you still have to do the form. So remember, this is the form. Let me put it up here. This is the form that's going to be on the Facebook page. So you got to go to the Facebook page and fill this form out. All right. So we got a front. This is the front. And let me get the back. And this is the back. Whoop. And that's the back. Okay. So that's what you're going to have to do for your homework. And that's on the Facebook page. But let me show you the app that Allstate has for reporting a crash.
When small accidents happen, don't let it take up more time than it has to. Let Allstate's Quick Photo Claim help get you back to your routine without the extra hassle. Once you've downloaded the Allstate mobile app, you can use Quick Photo Claim to submit your damages easily on your smartphone. The Quick Photo Claim feature within the Allstate mobile app is designed to use photos of your vehicle to provide a repair quote for minor damage without having to meet an adjuster or visit a body shop. To begin, make sure you're in a safe, well-lit area and that you have a good cellular connection. Open your Allstate app and select Quick Photo Claim from the home screen. After entering your claim number, the app will prompt you to take at least 3 photos of the damaged area. To avoid glare, turn your mobile camera's flash off. Tap the screen to focus the camera if the shot seems blurry. Next, Quick Photo Claim provides a frame for you to take photos of all 4 corners of your vehicle. The last step is to capture a photo of your odometer and VIN. The app will show you multiple locations where you can find your VIN on your vehicle. After the photos are submitted, an adjuster will review the information. Claim payments can be set up through the Allstate mobile app if you are registered and logged into My Account. Small accidents don't have to be a hassle. Download the Allstate mobile app and let Quick Photo Claim handle your fender bender in no time. Available for download in the App Store or Google Play.
So that gives you some idea of how to fill that out with, I think most insurance companies have that type of an app now, so that's kind of cool. Talking about damages, I did kind of go through while we were watching one of the videos what people came up with for the cost of the repairs. And most of you were between the $500 and $1,000 range, which, initially when I saw it, I thought maybe just a little bit higher than 1,000. I thought it was going to be like $1,200, $1,400. But the winner coming closest to what it cost is Karsten. It cost me over $3,300 to get that car repaired. And it took me a little over a week to get my driver's ed car back once the auto body shop had it. I could not believe, the damage that they said that they had to repair and do. It was beyond me. So Karsten was the closest, although Ben was awfully close with 3,000. But it was Karsten. Let me put up the sheets again here so you could see them. Now, if you can't get a hold of the Facebook page, you could text me later tonight, and I can send these PDFs through you to you via text message. But if you look over where it says section A and B, I want you to do those two sections, okay, A and B. So write this down in your notes. A and B needs to be done. I really don't care about section C. That's where the passengers were. I am concerned about section D and E and F on the back. And most of the places where you see little boxes, all you're doing is putting a number inside the box to best describe what the accident is. So what I want you to do in the bottom left-hand side of the back page on F, where it says describe the accident, I would do that first. I'd give a 3 to 4 sentence description of what happened, and then go back through the different sections to fill in like the vehicle type, vehicle direction, what was happened pre-accident action, you were turning right on red. But section E is the real part that I'm looking for. Insurance company, I do want you to find out from your parents. I want this to be actual. Agent, I don't need to know. Policy number, I don't need to know. But I want you to, under a policy number, put down what is the claim number. So you're going to have to ask your parents, if I had to call the insurance company, what would be the phone number that I would have to call to let them know that I was in a car crash? And then over on section E, it talks about the damage to the vehicle. So like I said, mine was $3,300. You could put down an amount and then just kind of describe the damage to the car. Front right bumper is pretty pushed in. There seems to be going to be some paint repair or something like that. And then on your vehicle, be as truthful and honest as you can. I don't care about all the information. Like I don't care about your VIN number, your license number. By the way, your license number is your birthday and your name initials, your first name and your last name initials. So it's a sequence, and the sequence gives your birthday on your license. So if someone's trying to make a fake ID, okay, they've got to make sure they've got the right coding, because if it doesn't match up with what's on the license, they can tell it's a fake ID. So your license number is your birthday and your name, just a different code. So that's it. Yeah. So make sure you do chapter 9, chapter 11, so I